The United States Navy was founded in Philadelphia by George Washington 248 years ago. The Chinese Navy was established in 1949 and has a history of only 74 years. Today, China has the world's largest navy with 355 frontline warships, which has surpassed the United States Navy. With tension in the Taiwan Strait escalating and the concern of a war looming, all eyes are on the Chinese Navy's ability in combat. For a military that serves the Communist Party, its capability may be limited by internal power struggles, scandals, and corruption. Hello, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I'm Lei. This is part one of the two-part series on the Chinese Navy. In this video, we'll zoom in on its history of power struggles. The status of the People's Liberation Army's Navy had always been lower than that of the Army or land forces in the early days of the PLA. The land forces played a decisive role during the Civil War with the nationalists and were the main forces that fought in the Korean War, the Sino-Vietnamese War, and the 1962 Sino-Indian War. After Deng Xiaoping took control of the military, the status of the Navy and Air Force declined due to military cutbacks and cost-saving measures. At the 14th Party Congress in 1992, Deng arranged for Liu Huaqing, the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission with a naval background, to supervise then CCP leader Jiang Zemin, who had no military experience. This led to the promotion of a group of naval officers. After Deng died, Jiang placed his staunch supporter and Navy commander Zhang Dingfa in the Central Military Commission, elevating the Navy's status within the PLA. Since Xi Jinping became the top leader, the status of the Navy and Air Force rose with the escalating territorial disputes in the South and East China Seas and the increased threats in the Taiwan Strait. The Army, on the other hand, has seen the worst cuts in military reforms. There are three major factions within the Chinese Navy: the submarine faction, the surface ship faction, and the naval aviation faction. Of the three, naval aviation is the weakest, since it's difficult for officers with pilot backgrounds to command naval ships. The power struggle between the submarine and surface ship factions has been ongoing, and the position of Navy commander has been moving back and forth between the two. During Deng Xiaoping's time, Zhang Lianzhong, a submarine expert, was the Navy commander. Zhang believed that the strength of the PLA Navy rests on aviation and submarines. Around the time Zhang was stepping down, the 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis broke out. The United States deployed the aircraft carriers USS Nimitz and USS Independence near the Taiwan Strait.
Our purpose in being here is to demonstrate the presence and commitment of the United States to peace and stability in the region.
The surface ship faction insisted that submarines had never been the main force in naval battles, and that the outcome of war was determined by large surface ships. This prompted CCP leaders to rapidly develop large warships, including aircraft carriers. Zhi Yunshen, a member of the surface ship faction, thus took office as Navy commander in 1996, but a tragedy at sea caused him to step down. On May 2, 2003, a conventionally powered submarine number 361, experienced equipment failure during a routine training exercise in Chinese territorial waters and tanked, killing 70 officers and soldiers on board. This was a major disaster and the first time a Chinese submarine had been wrecked. The incident came just a few weeks after Beijing was accused by the international community of hiding the outbreak of the SARS epidemic. Investigation concluded that human error caused the submarine to lose control and that the submarine sank headlong until it ran aground. The 70 people on board were suffocated to death due to lack of oxygen. Quoting sources from within the Navy, the book, The Real Stories of Jiang Zemin, reveals that the accident was a suicidal act by a retiring naval officer who was resentful about Jiang Zemin's military reforms. Jiang was installing his own people in the military and had replaced many officers. a soon-to-be retired naval officer shut off the air intake valve, causing the vessel to run out of air and killing the other 69 people with him. This naval disaster caused Commander Shi Yunshen to step down, and three major factions resumed fighting for the top post. The submarine faction used the accident to argue that the other factions didn't have adequate knowledge of the complexity of submarines and therefore couldn't lead. The faction pushed a submarine expert, Zhang Dingfa, to be the next commander. Zhang graduated from the PLA Navy Submarine School in 1964 and had commanded more than 10 nuclear submarine exercises. He was a close ally of then CCP leader Jiang Zemin. With Jiang's support, Zhang became the next Navy commander in 2004. However, the most scandalous commander the Chinese Navy ever had allegedly plotted an assassination attempt on Jiang Zemin's successor and political enemy, Hu Jintao. The assassination attempt was kept a secret until 2012, when Hu was about to step down. Rumors began spreading outside China that Jiang Zemin's faction had plotted Hu Jintao's assassination years ago. 2 years later, after Xi Jinping ascended to power, China's search engine Baidu suddenly lifted the ban on the assassination rumors, which it had previously censored. On November 13, 2014, an article titled Zhang Dingfa's Assassination Attempt in the Yellow Sea appeared online in China. According to the article, in early May of 2006, Hu Jintao went to inspect the North Sea fleet in Yellow Sea and was on one of the PLA's most advanced guided missile destroyers. Two nearby PLA warships suddenly opened fire on Hu's ship, killing 5 sailors on board. The destroyer with Hu on board immediately turned around and sailed away at a frantic speed. Hu boarded the ship's helicopter and immediately returned to the naval base in Qingdao. But he didn't stay, nor did he return to Beijing. He flew straight to Yunnan and stayed there for a week before returning to the capital. The article also revealed that when the man behind the assassination, Navy Commander Zhang Dingfa, died 7 months later, the state media kept quiet. Only the Navy's newspaper issued a 33-word notice announcing his death. So, as I mentioned, Zhang Dingfa was the most scandalous Navy commander the PLA ever had. I will talk about his unusual death in the next video of this series on the corruption of the Chinese Navy. After Zhang's death in 2006, the surface ship faction regained power when Wu Shengli was named the Navy commander. However, Wu upset Xi Jinping in 2017 during a Navy exercise around Taiwan. Between December 25, 2016 and January 11, 2017, Wu Shengli led the Liaoning aircraft carrier in a training exercise around Taiwan. The exercise inadvertently exposed embarrassing weaknesses of China's first aircraft carrier, including having no night flight capability. This infuriated Xi Jinping, and he replaced Wu. It was reported that Xi had a hard time picking his next Navy commander. He eventually promoted South Sea Fleet Commander Shen Jinglong. Shen was the first Navy general to be directly promoted from fleet commander to commander of the Navy. After Shen Jinglong became the Navy commander, Chinese joked that Xi Jinping's 2 Navy commanders didn't have auspicious names and that the Chinese Navy was doomed to fail. The name Wu Shengli literally sounds like no victories, and Shen Jinglong sounds like the sinking of the Golden Dragon. Maybe that explains why Xi Jinping replaced Wu Shengli with Dong Jun, the current Navy commander. No one can have a better name than Dong for his job. His name means the military, and I think he might hold the job for a while. In the PLA, political commissars rank higher than the commanders because the party leads the military and politics always reign supreme. This hierarchy makes the PLA operation ineffective on battlefield because political officers and not military experts call the shot. This is part 1 of the Chinese Navy series. In part 2, we'll talk about how money and women have corrupted the PLA's Navy. Please like, subscribe, and stay tuned.